Assassin's Creed Origins played center stage at the Microsoft and Ubisoft conferences, and with good reason. The game looks beautiful. Now, I myself was pretty much tired out after Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and I was very glad that Ubisoft decided to take a year out with the franchise, and I think it has been good for them. Assassin's Creed Origins looks absolutely fantastic. It is from the same team that brought us Black Flag, which is probably my third favorite Assassin's Creed game, and has been in development for about 3.5 years. Now, the game looks amazing, and it is set in one of my favorite time periods, which is in ancient Egypt, roughly 1000 years before the events of the first game. It is set specifically in 49 BC during the ascension of Cleopatra to the throne, and the main protagonist of the game is a guy called Bayek, who is the last Magi, and he's basically the sheriff of Egypt and the protector of the old traditions of that world. Now, it tells the origin story of the birth of the Assassin Brotherhood, and I myself cannot wait to delve into it, and I'm very excited to find out how the Assassins began and how the Brotherhood began. I think it's a really interesting concept and a really interesting time period to set the game in. Now, I wasn't particularly looking forward to another Assassin's Creed game, but I will have to admit that Assassin's Creed Origins has definitely sparked my interest, and that is because it looks like the franchise is trying to breathe some life back into itself and to actually reinvent itself. So here are 8 ways that Assassin's Creed Origins reinvents itself. Number 1, no minimap. So as you can expect with any Assassin's Creed game, it is a massive open world. Now, looking at the map, Ashraf Ismail, the game director, actually showed us a little bit of the map, and it is huge in scope. This looks like it could be the biggest Assassin's Creed game that we have ever seen. But what I do like to see is the fact that there is no minimap, and it looks like Ubisoft are going to go away from the whole system that they have at the moment, which is where they just litter their maps with icons and things to explore, and the map becomes very, very cluttered. In previous Assassin's Creed games, you would climb the nearest sync point in the game, and this would be used to sort of unfog an area, and then it would just fill your map full of side missions and fetch quests and repeat missions and those sorts of things. And I think a lot of gamers became very tired of that. Now, sync points are going to be there. There will still be points on the map that you can climb and synchronize, but Ash has said that this is not going to be about sort of filling your map. Instead, it's going to be a way to sort of pay homage to the original games, and you can also use it to train your eagle, who you use basically to scout the world. And I'll explain a little bit more of that later. But replacing the mini-map in the world now, we have a compass-based system. It'll be very familiar to those of you that have played Skyrim and also the new Mass Effect Andromeda game. And the reason for this, they have said, is that they want to try to immerse gamers in the world, and they don't want gamers to become sort of distracted by all the icons on their mini-map. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. Now, looking at the actual open world exploration, it definitely gives me a feeling of The Witcher 3. You can explore this world and travel in a variety of ways. Of course, parkour is back. That is what Assassin's Creed is well known for, and it looks good. But you can also travel the world on horseback, on camel. There will be combat on mounts as well. You can sort of commandeer merchant vessels known as felucca, I think, and naval battles will be back as well. Not surprising at all, because this is from the development team of Black Flag, though they're not going to be as big in scale as they were in that game. But I definitely get elements of The Witcher 3 and this whole sort of traveling into towns and sort of exploring and coming up with sort of side missions and things like that. It looks great. The world looks open, vast, and it looks chock full of life. Now, they have said that it's a fully explorable world. There will be tombs, there will be pyramids, there will be towns that you can explore, and also not just on land, but you can also explore underwater as well. well. So of course you have the ability to swim underwater, and there will be underwater tombs, temples, and sunken ships as well. And that definitely gave me the feeling of Black Flag, you know. And it's great. It looks like all the really good elements in Black Flag have been brought into this game, and it just looks great. I can't wait to explore the world. Number 2, no eagle vision. So for the first time, we're not going to have eagle vision in the same manner that we had in the previous games. Of course, in previous Assassin's Creed games, all you basically did is you pressed a button, and this allowed you to scan enemies, and you could highlight them through walls and pick out targets and read sort of clues and encrypted text on walls, all sorts of things like that. But for the first time, eagle vision is not going to be here, and instead it's going to be replaced by an actual eagle by the name of Senu, who acts like basically allows you to scout out the battlefield. This is very familiar to other Ubisoft games, including Far Cry Primal and Ghost Recon Wildlands as well. And you can basically use Senu to sort of hover above areas, and he will tag enemies for you, tag obviously treasure, targets, interesting things for you to explore. And I kind of like that. You're basically using Senu to explore the world and, you know, identify points of interest. And I think it's really interesting. And now he is going to be with you all the way through the game, and who knows, maybe we will actually get to see the origins of eagle vision and, you know, where it came from, and how we sort of gained these powers. Number 3, a new combat system. Now, the combat in the previous Assassin's Creed games for me was always kind of a weak point for the games. I got bored with it, to be fair, by Syndicate. It sort of worked on what's known as a parried animation system. So you would basically be surrounded by enemies, and they would attack you in turn, and you would simply wait, and then you would hit the counter button and punch, and then you know, it very, very sort of Batman style combat system, but just not as fun as Batman. So I really got bored of it by Syndicate, and I really like the fact that they've taken the combat system in Assassin's Creed Origins and completely redesigned it from the grounds up. They're now working on what's known as a hitbox system, which is basically where you will swing at an enemy and you have the option of, you know, hitting them if they're within range, but you could also miss the enemy as well. You can actually use different types of weapons, and these weapons will affect combat as well, because weapons will have different weight, different lengths, different animations. You can now dodge and feint freely. You can block with your shield and also parry. And the combat system looks absolutely fantastic. It definitely gives me hints of Dark Souls, Zelda meets The Witcher 3, and it looks really fun, and it looks really interesting to use. You also have a adrenaline bar or a rage meter, sort of a la God of War, wherein once it becomes full, you can unleash this very powerful move, which will sort of take out an enemy instantly, or at least reduce their health significantly. It also looks like the developers are trying to incorporate third-person sort of archery shooting elements with melee combat, and they want that combat to be very, very seamless. We even got to see some sort of really cool slow-mo archery moves, very much like the Legend of Zelda. And I love the fact that if you are doing ranged combat, that you can actually sort of hover over the enemy and see how much damage you will do on them based on what area of the body you hit. And I think that's a really nice little feature there, and I really, really like it. The combat looks really fun, and I think it's a very clever idea to breathe a little bit of life into the franchise. Number 4, boss fights. So for the first time, we're actually going to have boss fights in Assassin's Creed. We got to see it in the trailer, this giant snake, and it'd be really cool if we actually got to fight said snake, very like The Witcher. And we also got shown a little bit of a gladiator arena that you go into partway through the game, and there are bosses within that, and the bosses look, you know, they look challenging, very powerful, and I just love the whole idea of boss fights. I think that's a really cool idea. Number 5, usable loot. Now, in previous Assassin's Creed games, of course, you could always loot the enemies, but mostly it was just to get things like medicine and money, and also replenish your ammo. For the first time in Assassin's Creed Origins, you can actually get usable loot. So when you loot an enemy, you will pick up something from them, and that could be a weapon. Now, all this loot has a use and also have levels and sort of rarity. So you can pick up loot that's rare, that's common, perhaps that's sort of exotic or legendary, that kind of thing. All of the weapons and loot that you pick up will have their own stats, attributes and properties. So you could pick up weapons that have a poison property or a bleeding damage and those sorts of things, and that's really cool. Now the developers have said that they really want to give lots of options when it comes to weapons. There are actually, I think, 8 melee types and 4 range types of weapons that you can use, including the Khopesh, which is like an Egyptian scythe, and it looks incredible. It looks like a Dothraki blade. Looks really cool, and yeah, I love the whole idea of loot. I think that's a really nice sort of way to add some customization into the game, and you know, it's a nice RPG element to add in there. Number 6, a revamped action RPG leveling system. So it looks like Assassin's Creed Origins is going to be an action RPG, and they're going more down the route of RPG, and I like that. You can actually gain XP in a number of ways, and you basically gain XP to level, and when you level, this will give you ability points. Now you can gain it through killing enemies, carrying out side quests, main quests, exploring, all sorts of things. You can gain XP through a lot, doing a lot of things in the world, and that really encourages open world exploration. Now as you gain XP and you get ability points, there's a very detailed and complex ability graph, I think is what they're calling it, and you can actually choose to level up your character in a variety of ways. There are 3 trees basically that you can follow: Hunter, Warrior and Seer. The Seer is all about interacting with the environment, sort of Bayek's control over animals, over the people in the environment. Of course you have the Warrior tree, which is very self-explanatory, and the Hunter tree, which is more focused on sort of stealth and you know, a ranger, basically range combat. You can choose to focus on one of these particular trees, or you can spread yourself across all 3. So it does give gamers more options in terms of what kind of character they want to play with, and it you know, it's really going to feed into sort of that replayability element, because obviously you might want to experiment with different abilities in multiple playthroughs, and I think that's really great. What I like to see as well for the first time is that enemies and areas are also going to be leveled. So as you sort of scan an area, you can sort of see what level they are, and you do have the ability to try to take on enemies that are a higher level than you, and these will be shown in a red icon above their head. But obviously if you do that, it's going to be a lot more challenging, and they're going to take less damage but also dish out more damage as well. And that, you know, that's very much borrowing a lot from things like The Witcher 3, where you sort of could see that, and you did have that extra challenge in there, and also that danger sort of element in there as well. And I think that's really great. Number 7, story driven side quests. Now this for me is a big one, because one of the biggest issues I have with the Assassin's Creed games is that they are open world games, so to speak, but they do clutter it with a lot of very sort of boring, dull, repetitive side quests, and Syndicate became that for me. I enjoyed the main story, I enjoyed the 2 main protagonists, Eve and Jacob, but I found a lot of the side quests very dull, very repetitive, and after doing it, you know, several times, I became very bored with it. So they have said in Assassin's Creed Origins that they're wanting to tell the stories of Egypt, and that, you know, in doing the research on the time period, they've discovered a lot of very interesting stories that they're wanting to share with gamers. So for the first time, when you go into an area, you can carry out sort of main quests and side quests, but the side quests are going to be a lot more developed, a lot more interesting, and you know, they'll include things like cutscenes and characters that you'll meet in the world, and they'll have their own stories to tell, and I love that. I think that's going to be very interesting. If Assassin's Creed Origins can sort of take examples like what The Witcher 3 did with its side quests, then you know, it proves to be it's got the potential of being an excellent game. And finally, number 8, interactable wildlife and the environment. the game world looks fabulous. It looks so vibrant. It has a dynamic night and day cycle. The NPCs in the world all have their own roles, and where they are and what they are doing will very much depend on sort of time of day, weather, and that kind of thing. And I think that's great. The world is full of animals as well, including sort of crocodiles, hippos, and all these animals are very dangerous, or potentially very, very dangerous, so they can attack you in the world. You know, if you're at sea, a crocodile could attack you on one of the merchant vessels and can actually sink it. As well, if you kill one of them in the water, they do bleed, and that blood does attract other animals as well. And I think that's really amazing, sort of to have that kind of like dynamic world, and anything can kind of happen. And I think that's really great. You also had the ability to use the environment to your advantage as well when in combat. In the gladiator arena, they did show how you could sort of push the boss into these spikes and sort of take off massive chunks of his health by doing that, but you can also sort of fall into it yourself. So there are so many things about Assassin's Creed Origins that actually have me very, very excited. And you know, it feels like an Assassin's Creed game, but it feels fresh, it feels new, and for that reason, you know, I am heavily considering getting this game when it is released, and I'm actually considering doing a playthrough of it as well. But Assassin's Creed Origin looks great. It is set for release on the 27th of October on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comment section below. How are your thoughts on Assassin's Creed Origins? What are your thoughts on the franchise? Are you looking forward to it, and what did you like and maybe dislike about what you saw at E3? Stay tuned, guys. I'll be back again all week long with more E3 content, gameplay, and news. Hope you guys are having a great week. Take care, and as always, happy gaming.